want to talk about the process of getting disability benefits approved. And Social Security has what I refer to as a not I refer to, but is a 5-step process. And again, I'm going to put this up, these links around, but I'm going to just hit the highlights of what the process is for disability. So there's a flow chart down here. Let me get this fixed up here. It's called a sequential evaluation. And this is what the Social Security workers will use when they're looking at a new application that comes into the system. So the first one is SGA. SGA stands for, and that's just number 1 right here. SGA stands for substantial gainful activity. If you are working below the SGA amount, the substantial gainful activity, which at the time of this recording is $1,550 a month. So if you're earning even $1 less than that, then your application would proceed. If you're earning over the SGA, then your application would not proceed. Okay. The second criteria that Social Security looks at is the severity of the condition. Like, is your condition severe enough to prevent you from doing any work? And can they see that, like in the medical records? So this is where there's a disconnect for people here, is they may have medical records that don't communicate the severity, but they actually have a severe impairment. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is meets or equals a listing. And a listing is a blue book listing with Social Security is a specific criteria for common conditions. Actually, most conditions are covered by it now. But if you meet the certain criteria, for example, for a musculoskeletal injury, which is something that may be wrong with your neck or your back, that decreases your mobility, and it shows up in your medical records, then you could meet a listing. This is a very general statement about what a listing is, but there's a confusion for people with listings that some people read them and say, well, geez, I have a bad back. I must meet a listing. There's more to it than that. But again, if your medical supports it, then you meet a listing, and then you go forward and get approved. So if you're over 50, there's some other nuances in this process. Prior work experience. If you're over 50 and you've been in the same profession for 15 or more years, so let's say you were a truck driver. You drove an 18-wheel truck, and you did that work for 17 years, and you were in your 50s. So if you're over 50 and you're not able to do your prior work experience, then you could be considered qualified based on not being able to do your prior work. The other criteria for disability is that you can't do any work. If you're under 50 or you don't have that solid work history, then you need to prove that you're not able to do any known job in the U.S. economic system. And that could be, let's say somebody was a doctor, And they came down and they have a bad back or musculoskeletal situation, and they're 45. Well, because that person is under 50, they would need to prove that they couldn't be like a greeter at a big box store or a grocery store, somebody that's up front and just says, "Hey, what do you need? Where are you going? How can I help you?" Or even somebody that's on an assembly line that has a conveyor belt coming down with a tray of pencils in it. They've got to pick the pencils up, put the pencils in the box, put the lid on it, put it back on the conveyor. But any work, not probably mundane is not the low skill job would be the best way to do it. So that is the process. So number one is the work, two is the severity, three meets the listing, prior work experience, or any job. Okay, those are the key components to the process. And as I mentioned, we will talk more about listings in a minute. Okay, so Social Security, most of their work and the workflow that they have is available online, but people just don't know how to find it, or when they find it, they don't know how to read it. So this is a supporting document about disability evaluation under Social Security. And with Social Security, one of the things that is important to understand is that they have two programs, and there's Social Security Disability, and then there's SSI, which is Social Insurance, also known as welfare. And many people, unfortunately, actually here at the Disability Digest, 28% of the people that come here, we're not able to help get their Social Security disability benefits. And so they would have to go to an SSI program or welfare. And the difference between the two is this, quite simply, it's money. Your Social Security disability check amount is based on the work that you do and the taxes that you pay. So the more you work and the more tax you pay, the higher your Social Security disability check amount would be. So an average check that we see here at the Disability Digest is $1,350. Okay. So you could be working along and then stop working. And if you don't pursue your Social Security disability benefits within like generally about 5 years since you stopped working, that $1,350 check will expire. You're no longer able to access it. So that would mean that if you're disabled, you could pursue the SSI program, which is welfare. It's like the last stop in the system. And depending if you had any assets, you would need to have assets as an individual, generally below $1,500, or as a couple, $2,500. And depending on your assets that you have, you could get, like, as an individual, like $894, somewhere in that range. And if you had some assets, then it would reduce that. So it's a lot less money. And the health insurance that goes with it is called Medicaid. And the health insurance that is associated with Social Security disability is Medicare. Medicare is much more robust coverage than Medicaid. So one of the key things here at the Disability Digest when we're speaking to members that come in is we want to know about their work history. Like, have you worked 50% or more of the last 10 years? Hopefully they have, so that they would qualify for a disability check, and we could help them get it. Some of the people that fall prey to this unfortunate set of circumstances is stay-at-home moms. A stay-at-home mom had a good career. Let's say at 30, she started having a family, and she stopped raising, she was raising her kids, but she stopped working. And then something happens to her when she's like 40, or even if she was 36, she would likely not be insured for her Social Security disability benefits. So my public service announcement at this point is, if you know people that are raising a family and they're not working, they should really just try to find a side hustle to earn, like $8,000 a year would cover a lot of the challenges and allow them to be insured for Social Security rather than SSI. So that's the difference. Yeah. And unfortunately, for those that lose their insured status, the only way to get it back is to work and pay taxes. And if they could work, they likely would work in the beginning. So that's the difference between the two different programs. Okay. I'm going to cover one other item generally before we take a short break and then go on to the next section, which is this. Here at the Disability Digest, what we do to help people go through the disability approval process, and then as you learn at the end, we help people keep their benefits and maximize their benefits, is